All right, brothers and sisters, we're dealing with part 2, talking about how these high holy days are basically remnants of the mark of the beast from a religious standpoint of view. And with no further ado, we're going to do the knowledge on the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation, starting at the 4th verse. And it says, "And they worship the dragon, which is the devil, and gave power unto the beast." And see, this beast that they're talking about now really is the Roman Empire, brothers and sisters. But see, we know that the more ancient beast that was before the fourth beast that came up out of the sea, which was the Babylonian Mystery System that was created by Nimrod. See, so when it says, "And they worship the dragon which gave power unto the beast," that's remnant of the elites of today and the masses of the people that's under the elites. So when we're looking at Donald Trump, we're looking at Vladimir Putin, the Russians and all this type of stuff. See, really what they doing is they worship the modern day form of the Babylonian Mystery System, which is the Roman Empire, or aka Roman Catholicism. So from a political, religious, and a social standpoint of view, the people are worshiping Satan and they don't even know it. Let's look at a quick scripture. Let's turn to Isaiah. Let's look at Isaiah, I think the 12th chapter. We're going to find it, but let's look at Isaiah, right? Because we going to expound on some things real quick. I think it's Isaiah 12. Let me see. I think it's 14. Oh, yeah. Isaiah, the 14th chapter. And I'm going to start reading at the 12th verse. It says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer?" And see, when we go into, I believe, the 12th chapter of the book of Revelation, it talks about how Lucifer fell amongst the human family. See, and also, I believe the 8th or the 9th chapter of the book of Revelation, when it talks about a star falling to the earth. See, that's symbolic of the adversary coming amongst the human family. See, so it says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations?" And see, in this aspect, it's talking about the kingdom that was established by Nebuchadnezzar, but it's really talking about the whole world. See, in the beginning, which is in the book of Genesis, right? Because he weakened the world by his philosophy and teaching. See, Lu was the first one to blaspheme against the Creator. It's because he introduced the human family to a way of life that was contrary to the Creator, because he had hatred towards the people. So it says, "For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven, and I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim." See, and what does that mean? That means that he's going to come amongst the human family and he's going to persuade the human family to follow him instead of the Creator. See? But in this aspect, the stars of El was the nation of Israel. But, sometimes you got to take it a little bit further. It's because the human family was supposed to be the stars of the Most High. But in Genesis, the adversary turned the family away from worshiping the Creator. And this is why the nation of Israel was established to do what? To return the human family back to the Most High. So it says, I will sit upon the congregation in the sides of the north, and I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. See? So when it's talking about I will exalt my throne above the stars of El, see, this is when Nebuchadnezzar came in and he conquered the nation of Israel, because the nation of Israel rebelled against the Creator. So the Chaldeans, or the Babylonians, which most of us like to say, they were under the influence of the adversary. See? And because our foreparents rebelled against the Creator and we didn't want to follow the Creator gave us over to these people. Right? I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, meaning that what? I'm going to establish my social order, my worship system in the affairs of man, but you're going to be thinking that it's coming from the Creator, but in actuality it's coming from me. And this is what we're dealing with today when we deal with a lot of these holidays. Is because why do people deal with Christmas? Is because we believe that Christmas is the Messiah's birthday. He was born around December. But that's incorrect, brothers and sisters. And that's why in the book of 1 John it says that what? You got to try the Spirit to see if it's of the Most High. See? It's because all the prophets that came on the scene, if you notice, you don't know when they was born. Because the Creator told the nation of Israel, see, we didn't celebrate birthdays and stuff like that back in the day. It's because that's what the nations was doing. See, we didn't do stuff like that. We had to be circumspect, and we had to be separate from all the situations that the nations was doing during that time. Right? So the reason why we deal with Christmas is because we thinking that the Messiah was born on Christmas or around December. Some of the Europeans celebrate Christmas in January, right? So they thinking that the Messiah was born during the winter time, but don't understand that they're worshiping a false Messiah. They're worshiping Nimrod. See, because Tammuz is supposed to be the reincarnation of Nimrod, which is the sun god, right? So that's why it says, I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north, and I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. Easter. Why do we celebrate Easter? We're celebrating Easter because we think that the Messiah he died on Good Friday and he rose on Sunday. And the heathens done went so far as to put certain aspects of the story in the Bible. See? The Messiah was nailed, that he was nailed to the cross. They do movies on this. Right? But in actuality, the cross goes back to what? Fertility worship, y'all. So you thinking that you worshiping the Creator, but in actuality, you worshiping the adversary. See? Christianity is looked upon as a religion that pattern themselves after quote unquote the Messiah. But when you do the knowledge and you go back into the worship system of some of the Greeks, they was worshiping Serapis Christus Serapis Christos or whatever, and that worship system is going on even to this day. So when we doing these things, we're actually thinking that we're worshiping the Most High, but in actuality, we're worshiping Satan. That's what we're doing, right? So let's come out of here. Let's go back to Revelation, because we doing the knowledge on the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation. It says, and they worship the dragon, meaning that the masses of the people is worshiping Satan rather than the Creator, which gave power unto the beast. Who are they talking about today? They talking about Rome, brothers and sisters. See? And they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him. See? And that's what the people saying, is because why? They was engaging in the system. They was in the army. They was in politics. They was in religion. The country was at an all-time high. Isn't that the same way that America is today? Isn't that the same way as the European common market system is today? The people in this inception, the people was worshiping that. See? White supremacy. See? Who is able to make war with the beast? Because all these nations, they do what? They report to Rome. All of your politicians, all of these folks, they report to Rome, y'all, because Rome is still in leadership today. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy. What is that? They're going to set up a social order and a way of life that's contrary to the Creator. I'm going to give you Christmas. I'm going to give you Easter. Right? You're going to be dealing with New Year's. It's because all of this stuff is the worship system of Nimrod. See? And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth and blasphemed against Yah. How did they blaspheme? Is because they set up the Council of Nice, y'all. They set up the Council of Nice. And they started the process to mix and mingle Israel's history with pagan worship, brothers and sisters. They telling the people that the Messiah was nailed to the cross, see, that he rose on Sunday. He died on Good Friday, dealing with Easter. But Easter goes back to what? Fertility worship, y'all. Sunday is the commemoration of Nimrod. Easter is the commemoration of Semiramis. And Christmas is the commemoration of the sun, which is who? Tammuz. To blaspheme his name and his tabernacle. And who was his tabernacle at that time? That was it. That Israel was the tabernacle. Didn't they do that? They set up the Council of Nice. And they started the process to change the Sabbath, to give you Easter. Put in Christmas in there. And them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints. How did they make war with the saints? They put the so-called black man in slavery, y'all. They created the transatlantic slave trade. And they put the Negroes in slavery. They changed their names, right? They gave them Babylonian names. You know, in the book of Daniel, it says that they nourished Daniel and them for 3 years, right? And they nourished us until a time in the season that we can stand before the King, see? And look at us today. We worshiping, we following Christianity. And that ain't just Christianity, man. That's Islam too. And certain aspects of Judaism. Because you got a lot of our people, we following Judaism. But here it is, these nations, they had a part in doing what? Putting you in slavery. And it was given unto him to make war against the saints. See, that's when Rome came against Israel. And to overcome them, and power was given, it says, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. That's why in the 7th chapter, in the 7th verse, it says what? They stamped the residue with the feet of it. See, they had iron teeth. And even when Rome fell, you had remnants of the Roman Empire, which was what? The European Common Market System. America is nothing but a nation base that comes out of Europe. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. What does that mean? They're going to worship the law, statutes, and the commandments of the Roman Empire, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So when you following this, you're not going to be doing what? You're not going to be written in the book of life. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. See what that's talking about. If you live by the sword, you're gonna die by it. And here it is, these nations, they have lived by the sword. They have conquered nations, took down kingdoms, killed presidents, and set up new presidents of different countries. Look at the situation over there in Venezuela. They trying to assassinate the president of Venezuela because why? They want to control the natural resources. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And I hailed another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. A dragon. Who is that? That's America. See? It's because America, one horn represents religion, and the other horn represents what? White supremacy. It's because America practiced the same white supremacy or racism that they got when they came out of Europe, brothers and sisters. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. And see, when they talk about this first beast, they talk about who? They talk about Rome, y'all. But like I said, you got to go back to the beginning. When it's talking about the first beast, we go back to who? Nimrod. It's because Nimrod, which was a black man, he was a what? He was a conqueror. He conquered the world. It says he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, caused the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wounds was healed. And how you gonna worship it? You're gonna start following the customs and traditions that was laid by these people. They established Christmas and all this type of stuff is because it goes back to the foundation that was set up by Nimrod. He doeth great wonders, so that fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of man. And what was the wonders? It was what? It was their military. See, they military. They was dealing with the musket for a minute, and then later on, they went and they started creating what you would call machine guns. Then later on, now we dealing with what? Atomic energy. See, bombs and things of this nature. And deceive them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles. See, when they saw the armies coming in and conquering different people, and then they pushing the American agenda, the people doing what? They gonna start following this thing. It's because, you know, a lot of times when people take over nations, they send in their generals and their religious leaders, and then they start to do what? They start to set up puppet leaderships and stuff like that. And the puppet leaderships have the people following the system. It says, and deceive them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And see, the American flag is really symbolic of the old Roman Empire, or the old Babylonian Mystery System, because, you know, the colors red and blue, if you put red and blue together, red and blue make purple. And purple in the ancient times was a royal color. And some of the elites, they wore the royal colors, because the royal colors was in representation of what? Saturn. See? And Saturn is nothing but another form of the worship system of Nimrod. You know, people don't believe this, man, because, one time I was talking to a police officer, my main man, Pete. He told me that in Freemasonry, a lot of police, they're Masons. And I asked him, I said, man, Pete, I said, is it true that that in Freemasonry that they worship Nimrod? That that Nimrod is the master builder? And he admitted to it. He said he didn't have to tell me that, because why? That's really secret knowledge. But he said, yeah. He said, we recognize Nimrod as the builder, because he was the one that built what you would call an empire after the flood. So when it says that they should make an image to the beast, see, the beast in this aspect represents the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire is nothing but a modern day form of the Babylonian Mystery System that was established by Nimrod. Because, like I said, the blue and the purple of the flag represent the blue and the red. If you put it together, those colors together, it's gonna make purple. And purple represents Saturn, and the white represents the feminine principle of the system. And the stars represents what? The children of the Babylonian Mystery System. Right? So the American flag is nothing but a residue of the system that was worshipped 30, 40,000 years ago. So it says that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. That's why I was going to the book of Daniel when it talks about the stump. Because if you want to get rid of a tree, you just can't cut it down. You gotta kill the stump too. You gotta, sometimes you can use a bulldozer or something like that, some type of tractor, to pull the root out of the ground. Because if you don't get the roots out of the ground, the tree is going to grow again. So how was the system healed? The system was healed by these different kingdoms and social orders that came on after it. After the flood, who came after Nimrod? It was Egypt. After Egypt was the Assyrians. After Assyrians, who was it? It was the Chaldeans. After the Chaldeans, the Medo-Persians, then came the Greeks, then came the Romans. And now we're dealing with the extension of Rome, which is what? The Euro-Gentile world power system. So when it says, which had the womb by the sword and did live, meaning that, the Creator took them off the scene, but they was able to come back on the scene through another system and another way of living. See? And they had power to give life unto the image of the beast. Because Roman Catholicism, aka Christianity, Islam and Judaism is nothing but another form of the Babylonian Mystery System. See, the Jews, they talk about celebrating Hanukkah. Because you go to the Apocrypha, you're going to see Hanukkah in it. But, when I was a kid in class, when we used to take a spelling test, in my beginnings, I used to fail all my spelling tests. But, I remember what the teacher said in first grade. Put your thinking caps on. You imitate that you putting this cap on and you tying it up, because we finna get ready to take a test. So whoever don't pass the test, you fail. So what am I saying? When you're reading something, you got to comprehend what you're reading. And this is why a lot of times when we read the Bible, we're reading just to be reading, and a lot of times we read through the mindset of other people instead of reading to understand what's going on. So when we're talking about Hanukkah, Hanukkah is nothing but another form of what? Babylonianism. I'm gonna get into Hanukkah. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get into Hanukkah. Just like when they talk about the Messiah was nailed to the cross. No, that's not true, brothers and sisters. And what we gotta understand is that everything in the Bible is not inspired by the Creator, especially in the New Testament. That's why when you read the New Testament, you have to have, you gotta be looking through your third eye. See, and what is that? That's the Spirit. And the Creator gotta be able to do what? Navigate you the right way so you can be able to do what? Eat the meat and spit out the bones of the scriptures. So it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, because the American flag is nothing but the residue of the Roman Empire. So when America was formed, we talking about after the Revolutionary War and all that type of stuff, the Civil War, when they started to create the flag, because the flag is the representation of power and authority. See, when you got a flag, you are sovereign. See? So when they created that flag, they got the masses of the people thinking that they are independent of everybody else, but in actuality, they take their marching orders from Rome. It's because that flag, whether it's the American flag or the flag of the South, I forgot what flag is that, but a lot of these flags are residues of the Roman Empire. So this is how you giving life to the beast. And see, when you dealing with all the Christmas and Easter and New Year's and all this type of stuff, you giving power to the beast. So it says that the image of the beast will both speak and cause that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be what? Killed. Because back in the day, they was killing you if you didn't want to join Christianity. See, we live in a different time now. Especially the black slaves that came over here. If you didn't want to take on these customs and traditions, they was going to kill you. And they do that even to this day. When they come amongst these other nations, that's why they wanna invade Iran so bad. Because Iran is like really one of the only nations that's on the planet today that America hasn't really fully conquered yet. See, they got their own rules of engagement, how they deal with the people. You know, they Muslims, you know what I'm saying? But America hasn't really fully conquered those people yet. So, when they conquer you, they gonna set up rules of engagement, how they want you to do things. And if you don't do what they tell you to do, we gonna put you to death. See? And because America is really in the 13th chapter, starting at the 11th verse, all the way down. See, 11 all the way down to what we reading at now. See, this is talking about America. Because America came up with the two horns. One represent religion and another represent what? White supremacy, y'all. Racism. See, we forget how they set up Jim Crow laws in the country. Black codes. All this type of stuff. So it says, he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or their forehead. Now, people, the people think that that's in representation of a chip and all this type, but no, the mark is symbolic. The mark in the forehead is symbolic that you have welcomed into your life the spirit of the adversary. And the hand represents what? You're engaging in the system. See, you make the system your life. Now, we got to go to work, and stuff like that. But see, the scripture says that what? You're supposed to be in the world, but don't abuse it. See? Ain't nothing wrong with you going to get a job. But don't take the job, if you're in politics, you try to do right by the people. But don't take that spirit that you got the people voting for you and you're not going to do nothing for them. See? That's the spirit of the adversary. It says to receive a mark in their right hand. Like I say, the hand is symbolic of you engaging into the false lifestyle of the system, or in their forehead. Because what? The forehead represents the spirit. See? I have welcomed into my life the spirit of the adversary, that no man might buy or sell save he had the mark, or the name of the beast. See, like I say, what we talking about? We talking about Rome. See, and buying and selling. What is that? That means that because when people do commerce, they sell goods and services to keep their country afloat. So we looking at a situation with Venezuela. They don't want America to come over there and take over their natural resources. They don't want to bow down to the rules of America. So what did America do to Venezuela? They crashed their economy. That's why the migrants is here. Because we got to go back about 10 or 15 years ago, America crashed their economy. Their economy got crashed. It's because the people was under the vibration of Hugo Chavez. Then after Hugo Chavez, Maduro was a confidant of Hugo Chavez. He took over after Hugo Chavez died of cancer. America hated Hugo Chavez because he didn't want them to come over there and exploit their natural resources, and they had an issue with Hugo Chavez. Same thing with Cuba. President Kennedy waged war against the Cuban people, the bad pigs, and the U.S., they lost the war against the Cubans, and as a result, Cuba was never allowed to, to advance themselves in different technologies that took place throughout the years and decades of this planet, of the system being on the scene. That's why when you go to Cuba, the people over there, they ran cars in the 1930s because they banished Cuba. So when it says you shall not buy or sell save ye have the mark, what does that mean? That you is not under the vibration of the system. So if you try to go against the system, they're going to do what? They're going to crash your economy. You're not going to be able to sell oil and things of this nature. Now, he was selling oil and stuff, Maduro, and Cuba do too. But they're selling oil to countries that is pretty much adversarial to America. You're not going to be able to advance yourself. Because the world is looking to America. They're not looking to Russia and China like that. Even though Russia and China are big boys too, but the world is looking towards America. So you're not going to be able to advance yourself like that unless you come under the spirit of America. You allow us to come over to your country, set up a governmental structure. We don't care if you follow Islam. We don't care if you follow whatever you follow, but we got to control the situation. We're going to set up the presidency. You're going to run by our system, see? And if you don't do this, we're going to crush you. Just like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They chose to go against the system, and the system did what? They destroyed them. Because remember, the mark in the right hand is symbolic of you engaging into the system from what? A negative standpoint of view. The mark in the forehead is represent what? You take on the spirit of the system. See? That ain't no physical chip. See? Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 603 score and 6. What does that mean? That's symbolic of what? 7 is completion. 6 is an uneven number. So the people that got the mark of the beast, quote unquote, 666, these are the people that is not under the influence of the Creator, and these are the people that's going to be destroyed. So with that being said, shalom,